My son's fiancée sent me a wedding rehearsal dinner budget starting at $11,000, and they expect me to pay for it when I'm already giving them $10K as a gift towards their actual wedding. Just for background, my husband and I have 3 sons, Luis, 32, Cyril, 27, and Jamie, 22. Cyril has been with his girlfriend, Rosa, 27, for 5 years, and Jamie has been with his now wife, Lucy, 20, for a bit longer. We are all very close since it was just this year that my oldest 2 boys moved out, Jamie and Lucy, and their 2-year-old daughter Letty will be living with us for a few more years since Lucy is still in school. We are absolutely fine with this. They are both helpful, sweet, and wonderful parents despite everything. Plus they're not taking my grandbaby anywhere as long as I can help it, lol. Luis started dating Jessa, 36F, about a year ago and got engaged a few weeks ago. To be perfectly honest, I'm not totally sure about her, but he seems happy and has been through a lot. I don't want to be some evil mother-in-law and have really tried getting to know her, but I think we're just very different. She's kind of conservative politically and my husband is a US citizen but was born in Mexico, so as you can imagine I do not support and did not vote for the current administration. Rosa, Lucy, and I have bonded in the past by going to rallies, protests, etc., and this all came up when I tried including Jessa and invited her. She declined and sent me a long text. Nothing crazy QAnon, but like we call them Reagan Republicans in my day, not that it's the same these days at all. It was still so awkward, but I've continued trying to invite her to non-political things, but I think that one invitation soured things. Other than politics, I have also found Jessa's attitude towards Jamie and especially Lucy gross. I'm not stupid. I don't think that 2 people with such a big age gap would become BFFs, but Jessa seems to go out of her way to make snide comments about Lucy when she's not there. I haven't said anything because it's her wedding and 100% her choice, but also think it's odd that she asked Rosa to be a bridesmaid but was even saying she didn't know if they'd be inviting Lucy to the reception. She thinks she should stay home watching Letty because she won't have fun since she won't let her drink. The venue does allow people under 21 and one of her sisters is 19 and invited. Also showing Lucy pictures of her sister that Jamie would walk down the aisle. Rosa and Lucy have both acknowledged it but haven't seemed too upset. It's still gross. Anyways, Jessa texted us earlier asking about the budget for the rehearsal dinner, and I just feel like I don't want to spend any more money on this than I have to. My husband thinks it's best to just leave it, but it feels like the principle of the matter. Plus they're not even having a rehearsal or anything? They just want to have a dinner. My husband's stance is that it's true we helped Jamie and Lucy a bit more than our other sons currently, but we paid for Cyril's college and more expensively Luis' rehab. 7 years sober, we are all so proud. He said not to let politics get in between family, but even if she was a true blue liberal I wouldn't like the way she has been treating Jamie and Lucy. Ultimately, I want to continue having a close relationship with my children and their partners, but I also don't want to be walked all over, and I don't want to seem like I'm condoning bullying. Lucy's family completely abandoned her, so we're all she has left. I don't want her to feel like we don't care about her. At the same time, I know I'm biased towards them since Jamie is my baby and I've known Lucy for so long that she's like the daughter I never had. So would I be the jerk if we don't pay for their rehearsal dinner? Commenter: wait, she is worried about her not having fun because she can't drink but is okay with all this drinking with her fiancé being in recovery? Wow. Update 1. Thanks for all of your advice on my last post. As I mentioned, I want to be a good mill. I remember when my boys were young and we'd watch Everybody Loves Raymond and saying I would never be a Marie. I mentioned our political differences to be upfront. I know it's a bias, but it's not the main reason I dislike Jessa, just one of them. I get that I would be the jerk to not pay for their rehearsal dinner. A few of you gave me the advice to just let my kids work it out, and some of you said to talk to Luis one-on-one, so I invited him to lunch yesterday. Before that I had texted the 2 of them back saying that we'd love to plan them a rehearsal dinner and to let us know if they had any ideas, and Jessa sent us a contract for a place with an $11,000 minimum. We have about $10,000 saved up for each of our kids for their wedding/first home/honeymoons. Before you ask, we spent about $750 on Lucy and Jamie's entire wedding, much cheaper when all their friends don't drink. And I didn't want him to feel like I was only taking him to lunch to talk about the wedding, so we did talk about quite a few other things before I asked him how the wedding planning was going. He kind of shrugged like you know how it is, so I asked if I could help in any way. He declined, and thanked me for helping with the rehearsal dinner. I told him the cost was more than we were planning, but we are happy to do so for family. Edit. Sorry to spell it out. He acknowledged that Lucy would be invited to all wedding festivities. He got kind of flustered at that and just started laying into me about how angry he was at Jamie. I told some of you, but originally Jamie was supposed to be best man. He and Luis were always so close. When Jamie had first moved out of our house a few years ago, he would call Luis every single day and they'd talk forever. Same thing when Luis moved out last year. I knew after a blow-up Jamie stepped down as best man, but I did not realize they were this angry with each other. I have never heard Luis talk about anyone, much less Jamie, this way. He called him a jerk. And was like he needs to grow up, stop being so controlling and get over himself, and said that Jamie just didn't want to see him happy. There were other insinuations that I feel were incredibly unfair and untrue, but I let him get out his issues. I know you all think I'm so overbearing, but I had not realized the relationship had gotten so bad. I listened to his airing of grievances for a while, and honestly I didn't push back much. It was so shocking. And later when I told Jamie I had gotten lunch with Luis, he was just like, oh cool, like nothing was going on. We're just not a family that has these kind of dramas. I told my husband I just thought I should let the boys work it out among themselves. He said we'll see. So not a great update. I have no idea how this is supposed to play out or what I should do, if anything. The wedding is in October since they got a good deal on a cancellation. Commenter: regardless of the issues we had in the previous post, $11,000, assuming we're talking US dollars, for a rehearsal dinner is an outrageous request. I hope everyone can work out their differences, of course, but I think wherever you are you'd hear my laughter if someone asked me to pay $11,000 for a rehearsal dinner. I'd be at maybe $3,000, and that's still over the average cost of a rehearsal dinner. It doesn't matter the politics or whether you like them, someone with the gall to ask for an $11,000 rehearsal dinner gets a quick heck no, try again. Update 2. Please be kind to me. I know that I have not been a perfect mother or mother-in-law, and I know these issues aren't mine to fight, but my family is falling apart. Last weekend my son Jamie and his wife Lucy went out of town for a concert. My husband and I stayed home and had Letty, and we had a great time, although they probably FaceTimed us every 2 hours all day Saturday. Saturday evening Luis and Jessa invited us out to dinner. We told them we could go somewhere but would need to be home by 8 for Letty to go to bed, or they could come to our place and we could get takeout and hang out here. I assumed they wanted to talk about the rehearsal dinner. They didn't respond until after I got home from church, and my son just texted me and said we were thinking somewhere nicer. Never mind. Kind of odd, but whatever. Everyone got home safely but Jessa and Luis skipped our Sunday dinner the next day. Then a few days ago, I was home with Lucy and Letty, and Luis came over with Jessa to pick up the ring. Luis has this thing with Letty where he'll walk in and say ring ring. And she'll yell hello. And then he picks her up and gives her hugs and kisses. But he came in and was just ignoring her, so she ran up with her arms out and yelled hello. And he just walked past her. He got what he needed and they left, but I was appalled. I asked Lucy if we should tell Jamie and she just said that we probably shouldn't, but how are you going to be rude to your niece, she's also his goddaughter, just because you're mad at her dad? But that brings us to yesterday. I was out grocery shopping. Apparently, keep in mind I was not there, Luis came over to bring something to my husband, who was outside / in the garage with Jamie and Letty. Luis and Jamie got into an altercation that became physical. My husband says that Luis instigated the physical fight, but he's not sure of the rest since his only goal was to get Letty inside. When he got back outside it seemed over and nobody was hurt, but they were still yelling at one another. My husband told Luis to leave, and when he did had Jamie go downstairs to cool down. I asked him what even started the fight. He said he isn't even sure, everything escalated so quickly and I have never seen him so shaken in so long. We don't know how we're going forward, but I finally agree with you all. This is Jamie and Luis' issue to work out. I can't blame myself and I certainly can't fix it myself. My husband and I told Luis he was no longer welcome at our home, and he lashed out at us, telling us we were taking his side, and I told him listen, he attacked his brother in front of his child, they both deserve to live somewhere they feel safe. The other thing is that Luis works for my husband, and he's well within his rights to make him do a drug test. As for the wedding, I have no idea what to do. My husband says we should just give them the money we promised them and be done with it. That breaks my heart, but it might be the only way. Jamie just has told me a few times we just need to get through the wedding and maybe things will work themselves out. I don't know if he means that, to be honest. I'm just so sick, I wish there was something I can do. I'm trying to set up some time to spend with my middle son, Cyril. I feel bad that he's in the middle of all of this too and don't want him to think I've forgotten about him. Update 3. I have posted before, this is an update and this will probably be my last update, and I apologize that it's kind of long. I'll try summarizing it at the end. I am completely destroyed about all of this. I mentioned in my last post my husband and I told Jamie he needed to tell us the truth about everything. Lucy was working and he put Letty to bed, so it was just the three of us. He kept skirting the subject, and I finally got so mad and told him, listen, you're living in my home and now you're physically fighting your brother. If you don't tell me what's going on, your daughter can stay here, but you and Lucy will need to find somewhere else to live if you want to keep secrets like this. He got angry and wouldn't answer me anymore. We fought a bit more and he went to bed. I told my husband I meant it and he was like, I don't know what else to do. Luckily my son came to us the next morning and told us everything, from his point of view. Basically, for the 4th of July, we had fireworks in our neighborhood, so Cyril, Rosa, Luis, and Jessa came over. We still have rooms for them, and since Rosa's dog was at her parents', they all had a bit too much to drink and all spent the night. Later, when my husband and I had already gone to bed, and they were all hanging out, Cyril and Lucy went for a walk and smoked a joint. I'm not saying I approve of this or anything, I've never seen her high, but I've heard them make jokes because she doesn't drink but I guess sometimes does smoke. So basically the only person who was fully sober was Luis, but he had just gotten LASIK, couldn't drive at night, and was a little out of it in general. Anyways, Jessa flipped out when she found out about the pot and started yelling at Lucy. She said she was a mandated reporter and since Jamie had been drinking she was endangering her child by smoking weed. Brought up that kidnapped British child, and just laid into her. Lucy got upset and went to bed and Jamie argued with Jessa. He admitted it got pretty nasty from both of them, basically. Jamie called Jessa out for her behavior towards his wife in general. Jessa told him that she was just saying the truth, and it's ridiculous that they call themselves married when they only got married because they had a baby and for insurance, and would be divorced in a few years anyways. Jamie told her she's just bitter that she's still in her mid-30s and unmarried. This was low. She had an engagement that ended because her fiancé cheated on her with her friend. Jessa then went for the jugular and told him that it was embarrassing for him and Letty to even be in their wedding because it was trashy being so young with a baby and that Letty would have been better off being adopted by a nice family who was wanting a child. Jamie told her if it was so embarrassing for her, his family didn't need to go to the wedding and it wouldn't be anything off his back. He then went inside to go to bed. Luis followed him into the house and asked him not drop out of the wedding. He said everyone was just drunk and said cruel things, and promised Jessa wasn't going to call CPS. Jamie still said he couldn't be his best man and that he didn't want his wife or daughter to ever be alone with Jessa until she apologized. And that's when the whole Lucy shouldn't go to the reception so she can watch her daughter, and she shouldn't spend money on things that aren't Letty stuff started. Lucy was really scared of rocking the boat and was just going along with it. Jamie had been trying to get to her and convince her that nothing was going to happen, but she was freaked out. So of course I asked if he hasn't told us any of this because he also believed that this was a problem? How often is she getting high? He just laughed and said maybe 2 or 3 times a month. He's not worried, and she's certainly not since the 4th. Weed is legal in our state and I know Cyril smokes often low but only if you're over 21. So Lucy has been embarrassed and especially hasn't wanted my husband and I don't know any of this. I wanted to get my other son's sides and Cyril agreed to meet my husband and me later that day and his version was the same as Jamie's, almost worse because he and Rosa stayed outside and kept arguing with Jessa. And I know you all think I forget about my middle son, but he knows that he's my drama-free king who never causes me any headaches. I asked if he thought Letty was being neglected or if Jamie or Lucy had a problem and it was a resounding no. He told us that he thought that Luis and Jessa were out of their minds and just looking for drama. Apparently after Jamie had left the fire, Jessa continued ranting about Lucy, saying she was inappropriate with Luis because in his phone her name had an emoji by it. I can confirm this, it's a car because before Luis got his license back the joke was that Lucy was his Uber driver. She also talked about not wanting me to watch her kids if Letty was there because she thought that since her parents were teens, she'll be a bad influence on her and Luis' kids. Cyril said he and Rosa also want to drop out of the wedding, but Jamie begged him to stay on to avoid any more drama. Finally, he said that he's tried talking to Luis as well, and as much as he blames Jessa, he feels like Luis has to be blamed as well more than anyone for going along with everything. At this point we were devastated and confronted Luis about his side. He continued to avoid the question, so I was very clear. We told him what his brothers said, and asked if any of it was true because I had wanted him to get a chance to give his full story without any bias, but he refused to say anything until I relayed what Jamie and Cyril told us. He didn't deny any of it, actually has assumed that I knew about it, and that Jamie had told me and asked me to withhold the money unless Lucy was invited to the wedding, which has been setting him off. I asked him if he thought that Letty was being neglected by Lucy or Jamie. They live in my home and I needed to know if he truly believed that we had reason to be concerned about my granddaughter's safety. He didn't answer directly and was like, see, this is just proof that all you care about is Jamie and his kid, and Jamie needed to realize he wasn't perfect, so I asked him again. And he avoided the question, again. My husband asked him then and there if he could pass a drug test because he was ranting and getting flustered but not actually saying anything. He brought up some other things, including a specific, relaxed conversation that Jessa was a part of it and I still have no idea why she would be upset by it. I could tell Luis was deeply hurt by that and I think my husband regretted it. Luis told us the only person we should be drug testing was Lucy and made us leave, but the next day sent over a confirmation that he took drug tests at the lab we've used before and when we received the results he passed. Later this week, he handed in his notice. He works for my husband, he's taken a position at a competitor. My husband is devastated, because it obviously means he's been talking to said competitors as offers don't just happen out of the blue in his opinion, but paid out his notice and that was his last day. During all of this, but after we confronted Luis, my husband and I started discussing how we would move forward. We knew at this point that the boys would need to work this out themselves. If I'm going to be honest, after getting all the sides of the story we were leaning towards being on Jamie and Lucy's side, although we acknowledged the mistakes they made, since it all seemed like a severe overreaction on Yes's part after months of rude bullying towards them. We talked about possibly talking to them, booking therapy, anything to try to fix all of this, but on Tuesday our decision was made for us. It was possibly the worst day of most of our lives. I was at home with Letty and Lucy and a caseworker from Family Protective Services came to our home based on a report. We were all interviewed and they did a walkthrough of the house. I don't know if we're going to get an official notice or anything, but the caseworker seemed nice and told us she saw nothing to move forward on, but left some stuff about services for Lucy and Jamie. They are completely traumatized, and so am I if I'm being honest, and I've been glued to Letty ever since Tuesday, as if somebody is going to take her from them. Even Letty can tell they are sad. I've spoken with Lucy who kept assuring me she only ever smoked on some weekends, and never when Letty was awake. I told her that I believed her. She kept offering to take a drug test, and even if I didn't, nobody is going to take a happy, healthy, and safe child from her parents even if she was smoking every day, but I can tell she doesn't believe me. Jamie confronted Luis that evening, via text. He refuses to see him, and asked if it was him or Jessa. Luis told him it didn't matter, so Jamie told him he was dead to him and blocked his number. Rosa dropped out of the wedding, and Cyril is staying on as best man but won't attend the reception or give a speech. He wanted to back down completely but Luis convinced him to stay on for the ceremony at least. I told him he should do what he thinks is best. He says he still wants to drop out but is worried it might lead to something worse. He said something and was completely heartbroken but was kind of like, well, you know, there's still time for them to turn against me and try to ruin my life, so we'll see how this goes. I think he's trying to protect his little brother by not pissing them off more, but I can tell how miserable he is. My husband and I are completely broken about all of this. We told Luis that while we would always love him, but we could not support him or his marriage after he or his fiancée wasted CPS resources to get revenge on his brother, and that he needed to come over and get the rest of his stuff, documents we were keeping for him, childhood stuff that wouldn't have fit in his apartment, and to let us know exactly when he would be doing this because Jamie and his family were not going to be there. Maybe we shouldn't have, but we confronted him when he came over, asking him again if he truly believed that his niece was in any danger. He told me that it didn't matter what he thought, we'd always defend Jamie, who he said would get over it once this all blew over. I told him he very much would not be getting over this, and very likely he would never see his brother or his niece ever again. I don't know if he didn't realize before then how serious this all was or what, but he kind of backtracked, and told us to tell Jamie to call him. We told him multiples that wouldn't happen, and he got angry and desperate before blaming us, saying that we're the reason for this mess. We should have made Jamie figure his own life out and not babied him. I remember yelling at him that if he'd had his own way, I would still be doing his laundry and packing him lunch and to remember that he lived her for longer that Jamie has or plans to. My husband and he started fighting and it ended with Luis telling us that he was going to start his own family and didn't need us, and blamed us for all of his problems. I was done with that and told him to get out if he was just going to say things with no examples or explanations to back it up. He didn't ask about the money but I was ready to tell him I was saving it in case we would need a lawyer for all of his nonsense. I know it would be easy to blame Jessa, and it's hard not to because I can see her influence in all of this. But my son is the problem and he, or his fiancée with his knowledge and support, has done something so unforgivable I don't think he will ever see his brother's family again, and it will be a long time before my husband and I want to see him. I will always love him, and if I got a call tomorrow saying that he needed a kidney, a lung, bone marrow, I would go straight to the hospital to give it to him. If he needed to go back to rehab, I would go back to work and work nights to pay for it, and my heart feels like it has the flu or something because I know if he has children I'm unlikely to know much less meet them. But I can't forgive him for this, and he hasn't even attempted to apologize. I've never been so sad. In conclusion, Jessa got angry with Lucy for smoking marijuana on the 4th of July and threatened to call CPS. Jamie defended her and attacked Jessa, which caused the past few weeks of fighting. After confronting everyone, Luis was acting odd and we asked for a drug test. He passed and quit working for my husband to work for his competitor, and then either he or Jessa made a report to CPS about Letty. They found nothing, but Lucy and Jamie are traumatized, and we've all pulled out of the wedding. I've never been so sad. Commenter, wow. Seems Luis feels you favor your youngest over him. As for the weed issue, in my state, even before it was legal, CPS wouldn't remove a child over that. They look at it like this: is the child well taken care of, fed, clothed, housed properly? If yes, then we have much more serious cases we'll deal with. A report will be filed stating a home visit was made and all is fine. Usually it's on the parents' records for about 5 years before it's sent to long-term storage. Commenter 2, Valepu's son just nuked his relationship with his entire family, so his fiancée achieved her goal of completely isolating him. There's no coming back from calling CPS out of spite. You can keep the door open for your son if you like, but I don't see his siblings having a relationship with him ever again. Hopefully one day he comes to his senses.